Welcome to the Expert Witness Podcast. I'm your host, David Smith, and I'm excited to be here today with Lloyd Williams. Lloyd is a respected hotelier with extensive hands-on experience in the management of all operational areas: human resources, staff development and training, finance, marketing, revenue management, during all developmental phases of complex hotel and resort assets, with revenues reaching $62 million. A competitive, highly detailed, and profit-oriented leader, experienced with various ownership structures, recognized for a keen focus on ensuring guest and associate well-being, outstanding guest experiences, enhanced reputation, prioritized maintenance, and promoting staff development, superior training, and accountability. Mr. Williams is based in Minnesota and does expert witness work all over the country. Lloyd, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
David, thanks very much. It's an honor to be here, and been looking forward to this. Thank you very much.
Me too. All right, so the question I always like to start out with is, expert witness work seems to be a little known career choice. You don't hear kids growing up talking about how they want to be an expert witness when they're older. So I'm always curious, how were you introduced to expert witness work? How did you get into this field?
Well, I'm certainly one of those kids who never thought about expert witness work as a future. I certainly knew nothing about it. I always wanted to be a milkman, so you could drive around in one of those cool trucks where you could stand up and drive around like that. I thought that was a pretty lofty goal, when I was 7 or 8 years old. Certainly time has changed, but like most others, I think probably the vast majority of witnesses that I've met, expert witnesses I've met, I just kind of bumped into it. I didn't know anything about it. We work hard every day at our own trade and working hard at what we do and trying to learn and do the best we can for ownership and those around us and staff and make them better. And that was kind of that. I'm certain I heard about expert witnesses in medical malpractice cases, or as we got a little bit older, in major building construction failures and those kinds of things. But I was busy with my day-to-day work. So my involvement wasn't exactly an accident from my standpoint. It wasn't anything that I had identified that I wanted to do, but it came about as a result of apparently some good work that I had done a few years prior, in that an asset manager referred me to a relatively prestigious firm out on the West Coast, and they had been in touch, and the attorney said, "Hey, we need somebody to help me on a case like this." And they said, "Oh, I know this guy, Lloyd Williams. He's done a good job for us and for our company as asset managers. Give him a call. He might be able to help you." So I remember it was 2016. I was cleaning up my house, checking on my home in Florida after a hurricane. And I remembered very clearly I was repairing a kitchen window when he called and introduced himself, and he outlined the incident for me. We discussed my initial thoughts, obviously right off the top of my head, and once I settled in that I could obviously maintain my full-time job, which was a full-time job, I said, "Sure, let's give it a try," and that's how it happened. And it was interesting. It was a major case, someone who was seriously injured, and I thought I had something to offer. He did as well, and off we went. So I went down that path. That case lasted several months. I learned as I went, but in parallel to that, I did research into the business, let's say, or the industry of expert witnesses. Did some research. I nailed down representation, and that was it. Things went on from there. So, yeah. No, certainly I bumped into it, but I've enjoyed it. It's been challenging. It's been interesting, and it's allowed me to do good things for people, I hope, on both sides, frankly.
Yeah, very
So
good.
that's kind of
Seems
that.
like a natural extension of the work that you were already doing. So,
It really was, yeah. And the introduction was ideal from one trusted person to attorney that he had known. So it
mhm,
worked out pretty well. I'm
very
happy with it.
good. Very good. So I understand that your business does consulting work and expert witness work.
That's
Have
right.
have you found that being active in the industry helps you as an expert witness?
Yeah, it's critical. It's critical, I think. Sometimes I think about, I'm not interested in stale bread, and neither are my clients. They need up-to-date information. They need people who understand what's happening today, not what happened 30 years ago when I first entered the business, even though that has some bearing on some uh, accepted operating standards. But they need current information, and I've been able to stay in touch and do some work with owners and asset managers and people that I've had a relationship with in the past that allows me to stay involved in the industry and stay current. So I get real world day to day operational updates and it 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 not only is makes the attorney feel better that I know what's going on, but my comfort level when functioning on the expert witness side is enhanced. I can feel more confident
Mhm.
that my opinions are factual, they're current, and they can help the attorneys, victims, and even the courts, a judge, for example, um, realize that I know what I'm talking about. And I'm not a good faker. I'm a very poor actor, very poor actor. So the information that I gain when I'm on a property, on an asset, or on a group of assets is important to me to maintain credibility. It's all about specific competencies, and I can only build my specific competencies by being there on the ground floor. So
Yeah,
that's important to me.
absolutely. I agree. We do the same thing in our practice, doing engineering work as well as the expert witness work, and it doing the engineering work makes us better expert witnesses, and doing the expert witness work makes us better engineers.
Sure,
It helps you think
sure.
about things differently, so it's a very symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, it can be a critical eye, it can be a complementary eye, whatever it needs to be. If we weren't there, we wouldn't be able to share that information. We're not doing it in a cocoon. And all of our businesses, all of our trades, all of our industries are changing all the time. And I think it's important to do our best to stay in touch with those things. And whether that be a corporate staff or be a staff somewhere in the hinterland somewhere, we need to know how information is flowing, what's happening down the pipeline. And you're right. We've got to keep our fingers in it on both sides.
All right, very good. So you had talked a little bit about that first call that you got, and you still remember that. And I think most expert witnesses would recognize that attorneys will call and talk to several potential experts to try and find the one that they think will be the best fit for their case.
Right.
Uh, so in that sense, the attorneys are trying to qualify the expert. But do you think it's important for experts to qualify the attorneys that call them? Uh, like, would you
Yeah.
take any case that comes across your desk, or do you have
Yeah.
any thoughts or policies in that regard?
Uh, any of us and anything we do may have a bigger bank account if we took every case that came in. But morally, ethically, I've met no expert witness who was willing to take any case that came across. At least the ones that I've met and become and have respected.
Mhm.
Um, Not every retainer-based relationship is a good marriage. Uh, my initial consideration before we move forward is for me to take a mental inventory of, again, I'm going to use the word specific competencies uh, during that initial conversation, and just to be sure that I can complement their skills. I might be more critical of myself in the relationship than the attorney at that stage, because I'm an open book. After all, we are selling, right? We are selling in those early conversations.
Mhm.
So my whole thought process is that I want to help them with the process that they go through quickly, and I'm careful to accept cases where I'm very confident that my competencies really relate to the case, and probably match up with what their initial strategies might be. Somewhere out there, there's a hotel expert that has a deep understanding of why and how people fall and slip and fall in bathtubs. I'm not a slip and fall bathtub guy. I don't have those competencies, uh, and I couldn't gain that knowledge in a reasonable period of time. So it's contrary to um, uh, my ethical being, for lack of a better term. I just don't think I can be of much help. And I also, frankly, I see some of these cases with a little bit of a jaundiced eye on those things. And so I really back off of those. If I receive a request on, let's say, 50 cases during the course of the year, it's not a huge number, but I think probably I pass on maybe 20% of those. Not that I'm such a wise guy, but I don't know that I have the knowledge, and I'm not sure that it is a viable case, even along those
Mhm.
lines. I like to win, so that might be part of it as well. But yeah, that's kind of that. So I probably pass on 20% of those things. Not that the attorneys probably aren't skilled in this and that, but it's probably more to do with the case, and the
Mhm.
information that's available in the circumstances than certainly the attorney themselves. They're smart people, and but it may not be a good match. But I try to cover that up front.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes the facts just don't match the opinions that they want you to have. So
Yeah, no,
you gotta
yeah,
pass on those.
that's right. Yeah, you can sniff a conflict many times early on, and uh, we're here to avoid as much conflict as possible by knowing what we're talking about. So
All
anyway.
right. So I found that anyone that has done a significant amount of expert witness work has gotten a call and been asked to do their entire analysis and produce a report in a very short time frame.
Hmm.
Clearly, that's not ideal. But what have you found are some of the benefits of being involved early on in a case?
Well, I've learned that. I learned that fairly quickly. Uh, these quick turnarounds are tough for anyone interested in doing a good job. They're just not fun. I'm not sure that anybody benefits from rush jobs, be it the defendant, plaintiff, court system, whatever. It causes, I think, the details are overlooked or omitted, and depositions are more cumbersome, and the other side isn't provided with immediate clear picture of me as an expert, and I really believe that's not good. I want people to understand that I know what I'm talking about early on, and a rush job just doesn't help that cause. Remember Bill Parcells? I know you're out there in the West, but I've been a Bill Parcells fan for a number of years. He's fishing somewhere, but if you remember, they said if you want me to cook the dinner, they at least ought to let me shop for some of the groceries. I've kind of got that outlook along those lines. So it's been my experience, and what I push as energetically as possible to be involved in the discovery process, rather than being forwarded a you know 600 pages of information that they requested from the other side. Um, Maybe we only use 20% of that, but there are some things that we want to know upfront that really allows us to build a good picture of the case from our perspective. So the opportunity to be involved with the request for documents and what it is, what we need it for, and why really helps build that relationship with your client, uh, and also keeps the line moving, and it just makes sense. It just makes sense in the preparation of the case. Um, it really streamlines things and really helps. It's more beneficial to get involved as early as possible, and that early involvement includes the discovery process. So I just think that being involved in that discovery process helps all involved with the matters under consideration, and that just
Mhm.
so often is overlooked when we're in a rush job. Um, like you, I'm sure the opportunity to pass on an opportunity. Gee, we need a full report in 10 days. It's just not good business. It's very difficult. It would have to be a very simple, straightforward, directly in my face issue for me to say, oh, sure, I'd be happy to start the relationship with that. But that doesn't happen very often. It just doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely better when you have time to shop for the groceries. I like
You
that
bet.
analogy.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, he's an interesting fellow. So someone I'd like to go fishing with. Yeah, not hunting. Guns are dangerous, but fishing would be fun with him.
All right. So you talked a little bit before about knowing your boundaries on a case and what you can and can't testify about.
Right.
What do you do when an attorney asks you to provide opinions outside of what you're comfortable with? How do you handle that?
No, David, I've been pretty lucky, I think, that I've never I've never felt that an attorney was leading me down a completely different path than what I had anticipated. Pardon me. And now they're greater wordsmiths than I, and they may have done that or tried to do that, but I just um, in preparation for our conversation today and thinking about just that very thing, I've not, I just don't know that it's happened. And again, I think I'm lucky. But how would I handle it? Really is your question. I would sit back and really think through my personal thought process, including the technical elements, and just to be certain that I was sure that we're on the same page. And if I thought we weren't in agreement on a position that I might take, or a part of a report, or during our preparation for deposition, I think we just have to sit down and walk through it, because maybe there's a misunderstanding there, and I certainly want to be on the same page. But being on the same page doesn't always necessarily mean that I'm speaking a falsehood. I just want to be sure that we're thinking about the same thing. We're talking about the technical information that I'm aware of and that you and your team are aware of. The attorney may not be aware of those technicalities or those standard operating procedures or whatever it might be. And a frank conversation on those things really, I think, would help bring those things together. Um,
Mhm.
so if I can't state an opinion based on my experience, based on the full understanding of the circumstances surrounding an incident, it's not going to go in my report, and it's not going to be part of my testimony. Um, I'll leave it out, and we can have discussion about that. But so far, I've been lucky. I've been working with great people, and it's helped so far. But I think it almost goes back to
Mhm.
your other question about, let's cover the right ground up front, as much upfront as we can. That I think 10% of the retainer relationship is as important as the rest of it, because I'm sure we're on the same page and we understand what our competencies are, and I've got a better grasp on what the strategies are. That front end involvement, by the way, also helps set the strategies. I'm not an attorney. I don't know the methodology that they may use in setting their strategies, but if I can help just a little bit to make my testimony or my reports more important, I'm all for that. So I think we can get those things done on the front end. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So a lot of times with these cases where people are injured,
Yeah.
we end up looking at risk. And when you look at risk, the people involved are always a consideration.
Yeah.
What does that look like in the hospitality industry? Is that something that you're looking at? Are you looking at people more often, or are you looking at, more equipment or policies or procedures?
It's a mix, right? It's always a mix.
Mhm.
The hotel industry, after all, is a service industry. Um, it's a relatively transient workforce, whether it be restaurants, which I stay away from, but in hotels or other areas, it's a transient workforce. And the majority of the folks that are working in a hotel setting have very little, if any, training other than what they receive at orientation or on the job. And at the rate of turnover, it's very difficult for anyone or for operators in the hotel business to maintain a consistent level of training. So the industry really, if you think about it, suffers from an inverted triangle. If I walk into a 750 room resort in, I'll make it up, Arizona, I may be the best trained, and I would hope to be. Hope to be the best trained and the most well-rounded employee of that operation. But I have less personal contact than anyone else in that business. Instead, who are the people that make a guest stay important? It's that doorman, it's the bellman, it's the front desk person, it's the housekeeper, it's the engineer who was in the room fixing an air conditioner or a broken bed or the lighting or takes care of you know another item in the shower. That there may be a problem or something else like that. So we have this inverted triangle. It's upside down. I don't see those guests as often, but they do. So that there's a constant pressure on operators to provide good quality training to a workforce that's transient in nature. It's tough to catch them. So an important part of my presentation and my involvement is to test an asset or a hotel or a resort's training regimen. When are they going to get training? Who's doing the training? How involved is the training? Is it specific to their area, in their particular area? And then what's the culture in a property? And in today's world where we've got full service and self-service or limited service hotels, and we can talk about that at some point if you like. The biggest issues for me have been in terms of frequency of suits and things that I've been involved with. You see it more at the smaller focus service hotels, which far outnumber full service hotels in that they don't have a full-time on-site human resources person or a trainer that are there carrying the ball every day, not just handling their insurance, but being certain that the training is taking place. Training at every hotel is the primary responsibility, or the primary overseer of that is the general manager. But
Mhm.
most general managers by far do not possess the skills of a solid trainer. So it's a real challenge for third party operators, third party management companies who have good intentions, but they're stretched thin. They may have 25, 35, 150 hotels in their portfolio, and none of them have on-site human resources person. So you've got to deploy someone from Minneapolis to uh, Salt Lake City to implement training, execute training programs. Well, that person is there in 3 days, and everybody's happy, and they take pictures, and off they go. And you come back a month later, and gee, how's everybody? And what happened to Mary? And what happened to Joe? Oh, they left. They took a job somewhere else. You've got to almost start the whole thing all over again. Now, the brands, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the IHGs of the world have closed that gap with some online training, but that still has to be reinforced at the property level, and that's where it falls apart too often. Again, as I say, once the information gets out to the hinterlands, uh, that's when it gets diluted. That's when they go, oh, gee, well, we're here in Salt Lake City. We need to get the sidewalk, you know, shoveled today, or we need to get this done or that done. So it becomes spotty, and that's a huge difficulty in the hotel and resort business. It's just the ongoing training and the need for ongoing training. So that's a tough one. So I've got to really, every time I go into a case, take a look at a hotel, look at their organizational chart, look at their training programs. Uh, it's a matter of, are they able to get it done? How consistently, and what's the skills of those people that are doing the training? That's I must tell you that in 75, 80% of the cases, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the rubber meets the road, and it's tough. It's tough out there. Um, it's tough business from that standpoint. We've all stayed in hotels, and we've got service levels that are up and down and up and down, and you can tell if they're well trained or if they're not. Right? It happens all the time. I continue to stay in hotels. People that don't know who I am, and frankly could care less, but it really makes it very obvious. Makes it very obvious. So it's tough in our business, and I'm not sure how many businesses have the transientness or the turnover rate that the service industry as a whole have, and uh, and on a property level, it's difficult. Difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Training is always difficult to maintain, and to ensure that people get trained and understand the training and implement the training. So
And I'm sure you
that's
see the same thing in your business with the items that you're involved with on a daily basis. You couldn't put
yeah,
Lloyd Williams in there to work on this equipment that you and your colleagues have such a huge competency level in, and you can't train all of that all the time, and there is turnover, and then you're left with this dangerous void. You're left with an opportunity for people to get hurt or killed,
yeah,
unfortunately.
that
You
is
bet.
that is the unfortunate truth.
You bet.
So one of the things that you'd said is that as you go and stay in hotels, you notice the service level fluctuates, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. Uh, so I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast stay in hotels fairly frequently. And if someone is booking a hotel, are there any red flags they should be aware of that
Absolutely.
indicate, maybe you shouldn't stay at this place?
Well, and this is our public service announcement. We can categorize this as a public service announcement because there are a lot of ways to find out, but I think our ultimate goal is to eliminate injuries and death, and that's really it. Whether we be in court or whether we're involved in a suit or anything else, but we're never going to reach that point. There are always going to be some sort of injuries and worse, unfortunately, in our business. But you know, that's kind of a personal goals to myself to help friends and family and your audience to avoid encountering places where danger is lurking somewhere. When I'm asked for safe travel advice, the first thing I do is to recommend that people go to the booking engines, the Pricelines, the Hotel.com, the Trivagos. There are a handful of these things out there that many people use. And take a look at the hotel or motel that's close to what they want to see or do, or convenient, convenient to the highway they'll be on the next day. And once they locate 3, 4, 5 hotels in that location, dig down and read the reviews from prior guests. And I don't mean just the first page or two. Dig down. Some of these people have hundreds of reviews on the pages. Some of these hotels. So it's important. Dig down as deep as you can. Take time. Take 20 minutes. And if you travel with children, look for prior guests that travel with children. If you're a bit older, look for reviews from older travelers. That 15 or 20 minutes that you take to do some culling through of those different properties really are going to make or break your trip. And then what do you look for? You look for comments like, "Oh gosh, the locks didn't work when I got to the room. The door locks didn't work. There were people wandering around the parking lot all night. There were police cars that circle the property and drive through the parking lot on a regular basis. No one ever answered the phone when I called the front desk." These are all danger signs that tell the traveler, don't come here. Lloyd Williams said, don't come here because of these things. And you just need to look. All the signs are there. You just need to put 2 and 2 together. And there'll be individual things that will happen, and you'll get some people who may not enjoy their check-in process, so they've got they've got an edge on the remainder of their stay, and you can overlook those things. I mean, your listeners are smart people, they're going to understand that. But you just need to look and put 2 and 2 together. What are the recurring things? But let's also remember that the company brand sites, the Hilton brand sites, the Marriott, IHG, Hyatt, whoever it is, they're not going to include that same information, that detailed information. That information is going to be up in those booking engine sites. Now, go to the company websites to book a room. I frankly, when I'm traveling, I call the hotel directly and make the reservations there, if at all possible. I don't go to the Pricelines or Expedia. I go to the hotel directly. And just personal choice, and I've learned from my time in the business that you get the best rate. You can start a personal relationship, even if it's for a one-night stay. But don't assume that those danger stranger alerts that I mentioned earlier are going to appear on those engines. They're going to be in the Hotel Tonight price line. You'll get great information relative to amenities, relative to location, what's nearby from the corporate sites, but you're not going to get all the nitty-gritty details that you're going to get from those booking sites. So, guys, if somebody takes 15, 20 minutes related to a long vacation stay or an overnight stay as you're driving from Minneapolis to Nashville, it's worth the time to be invested. And that's the end of my public service announcement. I hope that helps, but it's pretty solid information based on my experience.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
good
great.
recommendation.
Great advice. Great advice. So, having worked in the hospitality industry for your entire career, are there any tenets or basics of hospitality that you think apply directly to expert witness work that make you a better expert?
Well, for my earliest training, and I was very fortunate to be trained by great people. Bernard Richter was my first general manager. He was a legend. He and his brother Siegfried Richter were icons of Hilton hotels going back 100 years, but my training focused on at the top of your priority list in the decisions you make every day. The top priorities are protecting the guest, the employee, and the asset. That principle should be the baseline of every decision that I make throughout my career. From beyond the time when I got out of school, they said, regardless of what you're thinking about every day, money is fine, income is fine, margins are fine, but you need to be absolutely certain that you protect the guest, the employee, and the asset, the building, in every decision you make. And that stuck with me. These are good. These were good people, and so it's important for me to say that I'm a big supporter of hotel brands. I may come across from time to time that I'm not, but I'm a huge admirer. I'm an old Hilton hotel guy going way back to my primary earliest training and a couple of nice positions with Marriott hotels and others. But I am absolutely want to make it clear that I'm a real rabid supporter of hotel brands, their directives and their standards designed to protect guests and the employees. And on the whole, the third party management companies, because the hotel brands, again, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, they directly manage relatively few of the hotels that are out there as you drive down the road. You're not going to walk in and meet Joe or Mary Smith, who are Hilton hotel employees or Marriott hotel employees. They're going to be employees of either an owner who's got a management entity or a larger management firm that again could be managing anywhere from 15 to 150 hotels. So that's an important piece. So it's the standards and practices that are passed from the corporate offices. Again, I'm going to use the word hinterlands, but out to their portfolio that every brand has created. I think they're all solid. They're well-meaning. They're well-crafted. They're well thought out. They are definitely the spine and backbone of a brand. So that's important. For example, every hotel company has a corporate stance on human trafficking. Unfortunately, something that I've been involved with in my expert side. And that's all well and good, but how does that information travel to, from New York to Boise, for example? How does it travel to, Arkansas? How does it travel to Los Angeles? Large city, small city. So that's really the key. There are certainly basic things there that there are certainly basic things that come from the corporate office that I've learned and are important. My experience, based on the diversity of my experiences, is what has made me more valuable to my clients, and it's because I've been on the ground with different brands and in different locations and jobs I've had. I didn't walk into a hotel and become a managing director or anything else. I mean, I've cleaned diapers out of baby pools, as a kid in college, and ran kids recreation programs. I was a cook and in purchasing and night audit and accounts payable. So, I've earned the gray hair that I have, but the basic line is that you've got to have people and follow the tenet of taking care of the guest, the employee, and the building. I hope I haven't gone too far around on that whole thing, but that's the basis of what I've learned in the hotel business, and that's what I put in place, and that's what's been effective for my clients on the expert witness side. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope so.
Thinking about the people first. That's one thing that I talk about with the colleagues that I have, is particularly when they're just starting out, is remember that the attorneys are just people too. A lot of times they seem like a very authoritative figure,
Right.
But really they're just people. And, as long as we can talk to them like people and treat them like people,
Right.
that really helps the relationship.
I always
And
find it interesting, and I've had it happen a few times when people know some resorts that I've been affiliated with or managed. And I've done a number of PGA Tour events, pardon me, a number of PGA Tour events and United States Golf Association National Championships. They know these golf courses I have, and it's always interesting when there's an attorney from the opposite side, let's say, uh, questioning me and going through their side, and we take a break, and they say, "Gee, Lloyd, is there any chance you could get me on that golf course one of these days?" And that obviously changes the tone. But then when we're back in it, we're back to business. But you're right; they are people. I know they want the best for their client, but they'd also want the same best and safety for their family and colleagues and their families. So that's always fun. That's always fun.
absolutely. All right. So what have been the best, sorry, what have been the best parts of working in the hospitality industry? Do you have any outstanding memories, working on golf courses, meeting famous people?
Yeah, you know, um, I've thankfully been involved, thanks to those around me and ownership and others, with Super Bowls and uh, PGA Tour and conferences that involve people from around the world. All of those things are memorable, but for the most part, it's been the people that I remember. I think we spoke a little bit about my mentors. Bernard Richter, who was my first general manager, Carl Modick, rest his soul, who later became president of Hilton Hotels. I watched him closely. Another great hotelier was a fellow named Tony Baiari, who later managed Casa de Campo, which was the resort in the Caribbean, and my good friend from Colonial Williamsburg and colleague, a fellow named Ed Allman, who's still the best overall marketing mind of the resort sector. All those people have been important, and I've held closely the things that I learned from them. But we all meet interesting people. You meet interesting people, and we shake their hand and we move on. But I've been fortunate to spend some effective uh, extended time with some folks who are smart, have great imaginations, and they're the people who are kind of turning the dials in the background in business and government and sports. Uh, I sat with President Obama. I was running a hotel outside of Washington, and we sat in a small, the outer office in the human resources office as he ate a sandwich and I can't remember what he had to drink, Diet Coke or something, before he did a presentation at my hotel. But he had a great sense of humor. He was genuine. Yeah, we told a couple of jokes, but he was a human being. Um, uh, Sandra Day O'Connor, I remember I spent I think around 3 hours with Sandra Day O'Connor, her husband John. She was on the board of directors at the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, and they stayed with me. And there was someone who was obviously very interested in me and my staff and the business, and just really genuine people, smart. Uh, I can't imagine, what her resume is like. I certainly haven't looked at recently. There's another fellow named Robert Reich. I don't know if you remember him. He worked in a number of administrations, but we had lunch together and had a snack together another time, and he just spoke to me about uh, public policy and my love of economics and all those kinds of things. And these people, whether you agree or not on their political views and where they are, there may not be a match there, but you can't get by the fact that these are bright people who are leaders in whatever they do. But my biggest one, I must tell you, was Lawrence Rockefeller. I spent a great deal of time with Lawrence Rockefeller. I say a great deal of time. It's not like I moved into his, to his guest room or anything like that. But I met him during my tenure at Colonial Williamsburg. He stayed 3 nights at the hotel I was managing, and he was incredible. Stepped out of the car, and Lloyd, you can't know how much I've been looking forward to meeting you, and thank you for showing me around, and let's find a place where we can have our photograph taken together. And there was no entourage. He just stepped out of a car, shook my hand, and we spoke. We talked about his family's involvement in Colonial Williamsburg. We talked about the creation of rock resorts and his interest in conservation around the world. I have never forgotten those few days with him, and we'll always remember him. And by the way, he worked every day he was there. Every day, he had a high top table with a telephone, and he drank some carrot juice concoction, and he was just terrific. And by the way, he had fewer special requests than any so-called VIP guest I had ever encountered. He just was there, was kind to everyone he came in contact with, and he was without question my favorite guest. So that's a real great memory, meeting some folks like that. And yeah, I've been a lot of baseball players and football players and golfers and this and that, but a lot of those names will disappear in the fog, and the Rockefeller name, and certainly my experience with Mr. Rockefeller was terrific. It's tough to express the impact he had on me during those times, but I enjoyed it, and it was a great experience. And working at a terrific place like Colonial Williamsburg was, afforded me that the ability to meet many of those folks. But we've had some great experiences, and we've had some others we'd like to forget, but they don't happen. I've got some gray hair. I've earned an awful lot of them, by the way. But
Yeah, that's great. That's
yeah.
great. It's fun
Sorry to
to,
run on about that, but and we could really sit down someday and have lunch, and I could completely ruin your day by running through all the nice people I've met, but I won't do that to you.
yeah, it's good to rub shoulders with people like that and get
Yeah,
those
yeah,
experiences. And clearly it's had, his kindness and
right. I would love to think that,
attention has made an impact on you.
yeah, I would love to think that any of us would have that impact on someone else. But it's tough. It's tough. So, but he was around a long time, and was fun. And certainly there are pluses and minuses of all these personalities and everything else. Again, their political affiliations or his interest in flying saucers and all those other kinds of things. You know what? If you're Lawrence Rockefeller, you can have an interest in anything you want. He did an awful lot of good for the world, and it was interesting.
Absolutely. All right. So we find that experts are always interested in getting more cases. And I
Yeah.
understand there are a few attorneys that you've done repeat business with.
Mm,
What have
yeah.
you done to help build and maintain those relationships that's helped you get repeat business?
Well, it's a great question, and I kind of had to break it down. First, I kind of am who I am from that standpoint, and that's clear to folks relatively early on. I certainly am respectful and everything else, and I take what they're doing very seriously, very seriously. But you're right. I've been fortunate to have a core of attorneys who have expressed their loyalty and confidence by allowing me to help them on more than one occasion. And their trust has enabled me to focus on getting better rather than having to worry about, oh, am I going to have this client, or am I going to be busy on this time, or all of that kind of business. Chasing business is not my idea of a good time, and thankfully we haven't had to do it. But there have been a few things that I've done. As we mentioned before, I ask a lot of questions up front so that I understand the strategy, so that my initial responses, certainly, and certainly subsequent to those initial responses, are relevant and accurate. I want to be certain, though, that my specific competencies, knowledge base, match their needs. They know early on, or can understand early on, I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste their time. If I'm not the person who can deliver appropriate information and background and experience to them, let's not waste their time. I make it clear from start to finish that I'm available to them 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And I repeat that, David, throughout our relationship. I don't care if I get a call at 8 o'clock on Saturday night. I'm not doing anything anyway, by the way, but I lead a wild life. Yeah, I've got plenty of time on Saturday nights to have substantive conversations, or if they think of something, call me. You don't call me, have your assistant call me, have a paralegal call me. Do those things. I'm happy to speak with you during those times and give me something else to think about. I think one thing that folks overlook from time to time is to build a relationship and recognize and respect that, for lack of a better term, support staff that lead attorney may have. That's the paralegal, or it might be a junior attorney in the firm who's involved in the case. But it's important, I think, to involve those people in there. Understand, I might go to them with second tier questions on second tier items, details, questions, instead of taking the time for the lead attorney. I'm respecting the value of the lead attorney's time, but I'm also positioning those other people as important in the process, part of the team. I see it as a team relationship. I respond promptly, whether it's here it is, these are my thoughts on this, these are my preliminary thoughts, or give me 12 hours to think this through or do some research. I respond promptly. I trace my calendar, something I learned from my old sales days, for 2 or 3 days prior to a deposition. When they're preparing for a deposition, I'm in touch with them and say, have you anything that I can help you with? I know you, I think you've got a great strategy. You've done a lot of work on this, but is there anything I can do to help you, firm this up? They like that. They like that kind of thing. They like it. You and I would like it if I were in their chair. We like it when our colleagues or someone would come to us and offer to help at the last minute. That helps. I wish them luck and express my confidence again in their abilities and strategies and everything else. So I really do act as a bit of a cheerleader and a teammate. I'm not going to call them every day and ask if everyone had a great breakfast and I'll just sleep over the weekend and didn't see the Cardinals game or something like that. That's silly. But I want them to know that we're there. As kind of an aside from that, I can tell you that I also do extremely detailed billings. I'm very specific on dates, times, duration of calls, titles of all the documents reviewed, the number of pages, whatever that is. I spend a great deal of time, many people think more than I should, on the details related to what I'm working on and include that in on my billings. People forget phone calls and people forget that you had this to do and that to do. I want them to know what it is. So I think all of those things combined, help build the confidence in me when I'm not there. When they're sitting in the conference room talking about the case, I want the support of everyone who's in that room when I'm not in the room. That's the goal. And this may seem silly, but I also feel that in a way that I just don't experience late payments. People pay me on time. I hate to get to that kind of detail, but I think a great deal of that has to do with those things that I just outlined. There are people looking out for me. They know I'm looking out for them. they want me to get paid on time. They know I've done the work. Uh, they know, hopefully, that my opinions, et cetera, have been valuable, and uh, I get paid on time. I know, people offer to do billings for me and this, that, and the other thing. No, thanks. No, no, I'm happy to do that myself. So look, I've had one or two where we've had, holiday errors or something like that where they missed, may have gotten me to 40 days or something like that, but it's no big deal. Uh, these other folks are helping me out as I help them out as well. So I hope that helps. Those are
Yeah.
kind of the baseline things of the relationships that I try to build with folks.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of that hospitality background is coming out in that question. Just
Yeah,
taking care of people and being there for them when they need it. So
yeah,
that's
it's a good,
great.
that's a great analogy. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
All right. So if you could go back, is adding expert witness work as a service you provide something you would do again?
You mean in addition to being the milkman in the great truck? Yeah, yeah. Well, it would of course be my first choice still. No, I would do it. I would do it. And the longer I'm involved in it, the more likely, the more I know that I would want to do it. But I wouldn't do it certainly immediately. I might do it a little earlier in my career, but I can't imagine doing it with any less than 10, really 15 years in the role as a general manager or managing director or a regional person in a diverse range of settings. Again, diverse ownership, diverse types of properties, geographic locations. I would do it, but anything short of that investment in time and being on the ground at those places, not sitting in the, in the palace somewhere in the, up in the clouds, on site. That's the best way to provide good information, substantive information, and assistance to my clients. So I would definitely do it again. Um, but I certainly wouldn't want to shortcut my experience because I would be shortchanging clients. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
but
You
that's
definitely
that's
have
an
to
important
have
piece.
the expertise to be the expert witness. So that's great.
Yeah, the hotel business is not, someone walking up and you hand them a key and off they go. I mean, that's a simplistic thought. There's a lot going on, especially at, well, really any property, but when you get to elaborate resorts with 4 and 5 golf courses and 14 swimming pools, and it sits on 1,200 acres, and there are lots of stories in the naked city, and there are there are a lot of things that go on, but the diversity and the types of assets and ownership and management companies and brands certainly. Uh, you've got to be really solid in those things. I think to be successful in this field for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So if there is an attorney that's looking for a hotel expert, how can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Um, I'm represented by the Expert Institute, and they've got offices in New York and Los Angeles and Milwaukee of all places. But you get uh, a lot of referrals from the Milwaukee office. But the Expert Institute has been kind of the backbone of my business for some period of time, as well as those attorneys that have used me a number of times. I've got my own email address. It's lwilliams.hotelexpert@gmail.com. lwilliams.hotelexpert@gmail.com. Very impressive, isn't it? Very
That's
impressive.
great. Very
I'm not.
memorable.
I'm on LinkedIn, but that's become difficult to find people from time to time. But I am not on any of the pay for play sites. I don't pay for any listings. I'm not going to do it. I'll never do it. So really, between Hotel Expert and or excuse me, the Expert Institute and my hotel expert at Gmail site or web address. That's the best way to reach me. So I'm happy to speak with folks and help any experts out there, or help any attorneys or operators that might need some help. I'm happy to do it. I work around the country, as I mentioned. Minnesota is a lovely place. Fishing is good, but especially in February, I'm looking for opportunities in the Sun Belt. I get to Florida, thankfully, and on some things. So, but I'm more than happy to help folks. More than happy to
Absolutely.
help some folks.
All right. Well, Lloyd, thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your stories. This has been fun chatting with you today.
Well, I hope so, and I hope it's been interesting to your viewers and listeners, and I appreciate the opportunity, David, and your confidence in bringing me on today, and we'll do it again sometime, I hope.
Sounds great.
Great,
Thanks, Lloyd.
thank you. You
Take care.
bet.